Hi, and welcome to the Curious Cardiologist podcast. My name is Dr. Sanjay Bhojraj, board certified interventional cardiologist and functional medicine practitioner. In this podcast, I'm going to look at old problems in new ways. We're going to have a series of guests who are going to force us to challenge the status quo and rethink the way we approach health. Because I found in conventional medicine, we really just treat things, but what we need to do is focus on healing. So if that sounds like something that you like, if you're a practitioner, if you are a patient, if you're someone who's just looking to optimize your health, you found the right place. I hope you enjoy this episode. Hey everybody, welcome to this episode of the Curious Cardiologist podcast. I am Dr. Sanjay Bhojraj, interventional cardiologist by training and now functional medicine practitioner. And with this podcast, as you remember, we're always trying to look at old problems in new ways and look at novel therapies. And I am so excited today, but I guess I always say that, but I'm always so excited to talk to the people that we have on the podcast. And today we're here with David Letourneau, who is the president of ENYRGY, a company that is using light therapy for something I think is super cool and very interesting. David, why don't you tell us a little bit about what you guys do at ENYRGY?
Well, thanks, Sanjay. I really appreciate it, and I can relate to why people called you Dr. B.
It is a difficult last name. Yeah.
Oh, no, it's perfect.
When I got married, my wife was really disappointed. She goes, or when we met, she was like, "Hey, what's your last name?" She was a Patel, which is like the most common Indian name. And I said Bhojraj, and she was like, "Oh, what is that?" But she was happy that it was at the front of the alphabet. She always wanted to marry someone whose last name was towards the beginning of the alphabet. So I guess I had that going for me.
There you go.
That
Yeah,
my charming smile.
there you go. Yeah. No,
I'll take it.
we are really excited to be in this space for the reason that I'm a serial entrepreneur and I've been involved in a lot of different businesses and a lot of different industries, quite frankly, and it's been a tremendous journey, and I've enjoyed waking up every morning. But you've been in being a cardiologist. You've been in the business of waking up every morning and knowing that you're going to make a difference in at least one life that day, and maybe multiple, and maybe a whole bunch. So this is the first time, it's one thing to be in business and be supplying a nice product, and you can say that's great, we're helping people. But when we heard about what UVB light would do, which is what we're delivering with this device we're going to talk about a little bit, we got pretty excited because we met some doctors that were doing a clinical trial at LSU, peer reviewed at Baylor, and this was in the early days of COVID, and they were treating critically ill people with COVID in the ICU. And the results of that trial was that they had a 60% reduction in mortality.
Wow.
And
And for those of us who were practicing during that time, and I was practicing during that time, I mean, it was like an all hands on deck, do whatever you can. The sky is falling. We didn't know really what we didn't know even about COVID at that point. So a therapy that could reduce ICU mortality, and these ICU patients were sick, pretty impressive. And so what was that therapy? Just UVB light?
it was UVB light only. And
Wow.
so this is pretty amazing. I mean, UVB's been around for about 100 years. And
Well,
so,
I think it's been around since the sun.
well, since the sun, but UVB man-made for
Therapy.
about,
Yeah. Therapeutically. Yeah.
yeah. But what we learned is we got talking to these doctors. They also told us, they said, hey, we know that it's actually close to a miracle in the sense that we already know that if we give people UVB that have MS, we can stop the progression of MS. And we got very excited and said, wow, that's not far behind curing cancer. Like
Yeah.
we could really do some good here. The disappointing part was we did our research and found out that, when you get involved with the FDA and all the things that go on with getting something like this approved to actually make the claims and administer. It was going to be probably $50 to $100 million, 5, 8, maybe 10 years. And we just said, look, we want to get going a lot quicker than that. And so we've got that still on our back burner saying we're going to do that. But we wanted to be able to do something immediately. And so we looked then, that's really what we call the medical side. So then when we looked at, okay, how can we do this? We just moved over to the preventive side, which is obviously where functional medicine lives a lot of the time. And we've had a huge response from the community generally saying welcome, because you're really bringing something important here. And so what we did was jump in and say, let's develop this. The first thing we did was put together a medical advisory board and recruited top docs in this area that know vitamin D, that know light and that side of it. One of the first people that joined our board was Dr. Bruce Hollis at a Medical University of South Carolina, it's Charleston. And he's 46 years in doing vitamin D research. There's not a lot about vitamin D that Dr. Hollis can't tell you about.
Well, and certainly in the functional medicine world, I think it's a very central concept, vitamin D. But I think even in the conventional world now, there's a growing awareness and appreciation for the important role that vitamin D plays in so many different body systems, immunologically speaking, like your immune system, your cardiovascular, your endocrine, your brain health. And one of the kind of frustrating quirks of working in an insurance-based system, it's funny, is vitamin D assessment. And I don't know if most people are aware of this, but where I practiced in Southern California, you couldn't get insurance to pay for a vitamin D test until there was a diagnosis of low vitamin D, but you didn't know there was a low vitamin D until you did the test. So it was like that gift of the magi. I sold my watch to buy you the hair clip. I sold my hair to buy you the watch chain. We clinically do start to test people's vitamin D levels. It is mind-blowing how many people are low and how low those many people are, if that makes sense. So I think this vitamin D is really an epidemic. Is that kind of track with what you see in the work that you guys do, David?
It's worldwide. And
Yeah.
let's stay to the US for a minute here. The research that's been done, which of course there's over 60,000 vitamin D research studies have been done. So we know a lot about vitamin D. This is now fact, not guesses. And so, for example, low vitamin D, depending on where you set the bar, this is one of the things that has to be discussed is what's a good level. But it's currently been defined in the medical community, which we would argue is way too low, but 30 and 40 nanograms per milliliter is kind of the definition of an okay level. And typically a lab is going to say 30. But it's close to, it's 89.9% of people in the US are low on that definition. Now that's definition with a really low bar. When you put the bar where we really think it should be is at 60 to 100, it's 95% of people.
Yeah. And I think that brings up a really important point of the quote unquote normal lab versus the optimal range, right? So normal range is, and it's a really bad word because it's normal based on the normal distribution from statistics. So when you say a normal distribution, what you're looking at is the bell curve, and you want to be within 2 standard deviations of mean. That's what the normal kind of comes from. So when we look at levels of any biomarker, every once in a while, and practicing physicians will have seen this, every once in a while you go to the same lab for like 5 years, and then all of a sudden in year 6, your range shifts. And that doesn't necessarily mean that that's what's optimal. That just means what we're seeing in the population. So for instance, like a blood test, like checking a hemoglobin. So if you live in a population where anemia is very common, that range kind of shifts down. So in that population that you're in, lower ranges appear to be normal, but that's not ideal as a human. That's not optimal, right? And I think that this is an important thing, because what we are talking about here is what is the optimal range? What is the range where all these 300 or 400 different body processes are pumping on all cylinders and just really rocking and rolling? And yeah, and in the functional medicine world, we say at least 50 to 70 is really the optimal range. So yeah, I think it's a really important point to bring up, David.
Yeah, and it stems back, and unfortunately, the medical community, again, traditional medicine, is still working with numbers on vitamin D that go back to when we first really started to learn what vitamin D did, which was calcify our bones and keep our skeletal system in decent shape. And that number was 25 to 30 nanograms per milliliter. If you had 25 to 30, you're your bones were getting what they needed. You probably weren't going to have osteoporosis, osteomalacia, or some of the bone problems that happen. You weren't going to have that. And that's where the medical community is still stuck, and where the
Yeah.
labs are still defining it. Now, what these tens of thousands of research studies have proven since then is what they now call extraskeletal benefits, which are significant. Just
Well,
one.
let's dive into that. So, vitamin D as a vitamin, it's been called a hormone before. It's got anti-inflammatory components. What are some of your favorite vitamin D consequences, or what are some of the things that you see in the research that you guys have done that really improve with vitamin D therapy?
Yeah, a good point. And so here's what's been learned is that in the early stages of being low, what you would notice is you probably don't have the energy you should have, and maybe you don't even know because that's your normal. You probably don't sleep as well as you could. We got to remember that where this all stems from is there's over 37 trillion cells in our body. Almost all of them have a receptor for vitamin D. So now you've got, you kind of alluded to this. Now you've got 37 trillion cells that are low. They're sitting there going, I need more vitamin D and I'll do a better job for you. You'll feel better. You'll have more energy. You'll perform better. You'll get less. You'll get less disease and all the rest of it. But so the early stages are things that are what I would call kind of they're not life threatening in any way.
And non-specific. And honestly, when you say difficulty sleeping, low energy, I think these are a lot of things that people just take as potentially common with aging, right? And so they'll say, oh, you know what? Like, yeah, I've got low energy. I'm in my 40s. I'm not gonna, I'm not in my 20s anymore. And that's, I think, one of the battles of being in the longevity medicine space is understanding what are truly age-related phenomena and what are things that you can treat to live optimally. So I think that's a great point. So what are some of the other non-specific findings that you've come across with
As
vitamin
we
D
get
deficiency?
further into it, so now I would say kind of mid-range things are people typically, colds, flu, the things that are going around, as we like to say. There's a reason that cold and flu season is in the winter because there isn't as much sun. The angle of the sun is wrong for a huge percentage of our population. Anybody living north of in the U.S. anyway, north of between Las Vegas and Atlanta, approximately 35th parallel. Anybody north of that, they get zero UVB, zero vitamin D from the sun for several months of the year. And so there are some of the what I would call kind of those mid-range problems timeline wise. When we get into the long term, now we're talking if we're low for decades, then we get into the problems of Parkinson's and MS and dementia, Alzheimer's, cancer, all of these things. And again, 70% of the diseases of mankind have a relationship of some type with vitamin D.
Wow. And I mean, the fact that each cell, almost every cell in our existence, right, has a vitamin D receptor and means that in every cell there's a role for vitamin D, right? And that role can be different depending on what type of cell it is, but there is an importance for vitamin D. I think that bringing up the directionality of light is something that people don't realize is very important. Why don't we kind of hover on that for a moment, kind of expand that one. So I always think of that Tropic of Cancer to Tropic of Capricorn, right, as where we're getting kind of heavy sun. And for those of you who don't live by an equator, but if you go somewhere to the equator and you experience sunburn for the first time, you know that there's a difference between the sun that you're getting. I remember the first time I got sunburn was in Miami, and this is when I was like 20 something years old. And I didn't realize how different the sun is at different levels. So David, you're saying that at different latitudes, kind of north, south, where you are on the globe, that can actually affect the dose of UVB that you're getting. And if you're outside of your ancestral geography, that can significantly affect your vitamin D level. Is that right?
Absolutely. If you believe what the scientists tell us, we all originated somewhere near the equator in East Africa, probably, and so we were designed in the first place to get our vitamin D from the sun. Period. Full stop. We don't get it from our food. Unfortunately, we just can't. It's not there. There's a little bit here and there, and we add it to milk and, those kind of things, but it's just, we can't even come close from our food. So as we look at where we can get our vitamin D, we have to look at all of the other things besides that, which is, a lot of people look to say, okay, I want to get it out of a bottle. Well, it falls way short to go and get what Big Pharma produces for us. Again, not surprisingly, although you might think I'm more of a cynic than maybe I should be, but
I'm curious. I'm curious. So
yeah, it just falls way short. Again, you mentioned immunity is the biggest area that oral vitamin D falls short. Now, the first piece is 25% of the whole population. Again, this is research based. This is science backed. A quarter of the population does not process or assimilate or make use of oral vitamin D. Their body just doesn't take it in. And we all have different chemistries, so we all kind of deal with it a little bit differently internally. But don't get any benefit from it. But the biggest part of that is even those that are getting the benefit from it aren't getting the pop from their immune system that they should. And again, this is research backed where the immune system doesn't respond as well to vitamin D taken orally as it does from vitamin D naturally from a light source.
So that's interesting. Let's explore that a little bit. So, is there a difference between oral vitamin D and endogenously converted vitamin D, and what would that be?
Absolutely. You know, when I think we'd all agree that something that you get naturally is probably going to be better in ways that we might not even know yet.
I think most listeners of the podcast would be down with that theory. Yeah, exactly. We're in a friendly zone for that.
So, and again, this is the research backs it. For instance, another one is when you take vitamin D orally, the half-life of vitamin D orally is about anywhere from 15 to 20 some days, and average of about 17 or 18 days. So you don't have to stop long, and your vitamin D is right back where it was. Whereas if you're getting it from light, and I'll talk a little bit about sun versus what we've created, which is UVB light. Get it from light, it's about 6 to 7 weeks half-life. So you can even be, you're away from your sources and all the rest of it for a couple of weeks while you're traveling or something else, and it'll drop a little bit. It's not gonna fall off a cliff kind of thing. So really important. And so the responses are phenomenal. Now, the other part that you get from light that is, as a cardiologist, you'd love, I'm pretty sure you like nitric oxide, as to what it does for us in terms of our heart health and our cardiovascular system. And we deliver nitric oxide, serotonin, endorphin, BDNF, brain health, nerve health, and all of that. So these are additional benefits besides the vitamin D.
So from the UVB light.
Yes.
So a lot of it, which kind of goes to which speaks to why it's so important for us to be outside, right? Because that's where naturally we would see UVA, UVB light as humans. And really, again, how modern lifestyle is really our undoing, because now we're so afraid of being outside. And and one of the arguments I don't want to say arguments because my wife will listen to the podcast eventually, but one of the heated discussions we have is the use of sunscreen. Right. And I'm not a big sunscreen person. I'll wear like a rash guard or something when I'm outside, or I'll wear longer clothes. But I just get nervous because anytime we're absorbing anything into our skin, you always have to worry about the consequences of that. But there is now such a culture of being afraid of sunlight for a lot of people that even if you are outside, to me, might knock over my mic, but even if we are outside in the sun with sunblock and all these things, we might not be allowing our bodies to get the right amount of UVA, UVB to activate vitamin D.
Absolutely right. And that's where, again, when we started work on this to say, how do we deliver this UVB light in a way that is, number one, medically efficient, and we want it to be precise, because there's a lot of UVB lights available, bulbs, they all are pretty much. And quite frankly, it's an indiscriminate, what I would call an indiscriminate use of UVB. It's difficult to get what we would consider dosage that you know what you're getting and all the rest of it. And so that's what we started on. This took us uh, multiple $1 million and about 2 years to put this together, working with our medical advisory board, our engineers, which we have in-house, and bringing this all together to say, we want to be precise. We started with a clean sheet because no one's done this. So, any other lights you're going to find, they don't have controls, and we run it all. We realized we needed to run it with an app, so it goes right on your phone, and that's how it's controlled. And the first thing that happens is you're going to download our app, and on that, before you get started, you've got to go through a big skin type quiz, the Fitzpatrick skin type quiz that'll determine what your skin type is and what are your habits in the sun and what's the result of that. And so we get all that information, and then the app takes over, which is where the medical people worked with us and the technical people and the engineers to make sure that we could put a protocol together so that you have an individualized treatment that's precise. And the way that happens is we treat people now, and like I say, we started with a white sheet. We didn't know how we were going to do this. So we figured out that, okay, we better really control it tightly. So you belly right up to it to start with. So we get a nice bit of skin that we can get on your torso. So from the ladies, call it bra line down kind of thing.
Okay.
Turn around and do your back on bare skin. And what that does, it's a 2 to 4 minute total treatment, 1 to 2 minutes on the front, 1 to 2 minutes on the back. And in that time, we're delivering the equivalent of 2 to 4 hours of healthy sunshine without the risk. And so you'd say, well, just a minute, what is that then? Right?
Yeah.
Why is it healthy and why doesn't it have the risk?
Who says it's healthy?
Yeah, well, the natural sunshine, logic will as soon as I describe it. Natural sunshine is 95% UVA, which is, did I freeze for a minute there?
95% UVA.
It's 95% UVA, which goes deep in your skin. And that's where the dermatologists get excited in a negative way to say, don't do that too much, like for sure, don't burn, because if you're burning, it means you've gotten too much UVA. It's 5% UVB, and the most important part of the UVB is the fact that it develops the vitamin D. And so when we went about building this, we said, okay, we need way less UVA and way more UVB. So we've got a number approaching 95% UVB and a nice amount of.
Sorry, my dog, if you can hear him, Ziggy is freaking out in the background. So a couple of things come to mind. Number one, I think it's great that you're taking into account skin color. So that Fitzpatrick scale is a index of how pigmented the skin is, because there will be different amounts of UV dose based on the pigment, right? So that's one of the things that pigment does. So I think that's great. And so individualizing. Interestingly, I think I was just having a conversation with someone. We were talking about gut motility, and the gut has a lot of vitamin D receptors on there. So this person was saying that she would recommend to her patients going outside kind of in a bare midriff top, to your point, and having the light shine directly on the abdomen. And she's had significant improvement in patients with constipation. And I thought that was amazing. But it's funny that you just happened to kind of settle on the abdomen and the back, which is interesting. Why don't we talk a little bit about the difference between UVA and UVB? Because they, as you mentioned, what you're delivering through your device is primarily UVB, and UVA is what we're getting through the sun. So is one of those light frequencies more likely to cause burn versus one activates vitamin D better? Why should we care about A versus B? And is there a UVC as well?
No UVC. UVC, fortunately, reflects off our atmosphere, so we don't get UVC at the surface of the
At
Earth.
ground level.
Correct. And you don't want that. That's tough on your eyes, very tough on your eyes. Not all, quite frankly, all UV really shouldn't be in your eyes, but UVC by far the worst. So the UVB is where we get our vitamin D, which, like we said, this is still the most important, and that's on the surface. So what's interesting is in the case you were talking about, they happen to be bearing their midriff, but quite frankly, had they been laying on their front and getting their back or covering up all that and getting lots on their arms and legs, they probably would have had the same result because it's systemic. UVB only goes to the surface. and on the surface is the 7-decayi cholesterol that starts the process of making our vitamin D. So vitamin D comes from there, and then it goes through the system. It starts in the liver and is converted and gets to D3, and then the active form is 125. And I won't get into the science of that.
We can geek out about that a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. But that's what is active in the cells. Now, the half-life of 125, quite frankly, is only 6-8 hours. So that's where you do need a supply circulating of your D3 and your vitamin D circulating, so that you've always got that available,
ready to go. Yeah.
To convert in the cells. And that's why we say measure the D3, make sure you got a good level of D3, and you'll be set, and your body will have what it needs to operate optimally. And that's the biggest deal. It goes deep in the skin. And so that's where, like I say, the dermatologists get excited because as much as it does have a lot of benefits, 95% is just too much. And so it depends on where we are in the earth as to how much we're getting. Like you said, between the, Tropic of Cancer and the Tropic of Capricorn, it's heavy sunlight. And that's a good thing, provided you just don't burn. Get out there, but don't burn. The other thing is it's midday only. So, for people that are curious where you live, check your, on an iPhone anyway, under the weather, if you scroll down, it's going to show the UV index.
Yeah.
And so the UV index needs to be 3 or higher to be getting any UVB. So you're not developing any vitamin D. And so first thing in the morning, it's terrific to go outside, reset your circadian rhythm, get the blue light, get all of that in your eyes, and all of those good things that a lot of functional medicine people talk about. What's not happening is UVB. You're not getting vitamin D early in the morning. Sorry about that, but you're not.
So those early morning runs that I was going on, so about 10 years ago or so, I was doing triathlons, and I was going for like 6, 8, 10-mile runs, but always in the morning.
Yeah.
So I thought, I'm getting a lot of sunlight. That's great, but I'm not even getting the right wavelengths to activate vitamin D. And we'll talk about my abysmal vitamin D level here in a moment, but that's something I think a lot of people don't realize is it's not just the amount of light, but the timing and the direction of the light can also dictate what is coming through our atmosphere, what's getting to ground level, and what's hitting you as an individual.
It's the angle of the sun. So if the angle of the sun needs to be 45 degrees or higher to get, optimal vitamin D and UVB light, the way you can quickly, if you remember your geometry, is if the sun is at 45 degrees, your shadow will be the same length as you are tall. So if your shadow is anything shorter than you are, you're golden. Let's go for it, kind of thing. If it's anything longer, you're not getting it. Sorry.
I love it. No, that's actually really handy to have as a tool. And I think that's really, I'm loving that actually. So for most people then that would probably be, depending on your latitude, longitude, and summer or winter, how the earth is on its axis, that we always talk about that high intensity 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. Or depending 9 to 3 even sometimes. So that's really when you want to have some exposure to sun if you're trying to get it naturally. Now, you mentioned though the dosing of sunlight. So when we have our energy light, you said it's 2 to 4 minutes. That's equivalent to, you said, how many hours of actual sunlight exposure?
The research is very clear. We're 60 times more effective than sunshine. Wow. And 2.6 times more efficient. So when you put that all together, this doesn't take a lot of time, which answers one of the problems that we've had and why this is now an epidemic, because it's not, the dermatologists haven't helped by telling everybody just get out of the sun and, don't be there ever kind of thing. But it's still today, what do we do? We've moved inside to work. We've moved inside to play. And so we're not in the sun as much. Even if we are in the sun, it's probably outside of those peak hours. And as you said, you're there in the morning. And we should get into the testing, because when we first got into this, my co-founding partner, Scott Hansberry, and I were chatting one day, and I said, okay, we got to get tested because I have no idea where my vitamin D is.
Oh, yeah.
He didn't know his. And we said, okay, we got to go get tested and find out. And I said, I already know I'm going to be high because I'm outside all the time. I mountain bike 4 times a week. I love to hike. I want to be outside. I grew up on a farm, and that's just my
mindset. And
I'm in Arizona. So there's no shortage of sunshine, just like in Southern
especially this
California.
time of year.
So I
Yeah.
go get tested. I was at 34.
Wow.
I was like,
Yeah.
really? Why?
And yeah, I mean, that tracks with what I see clinically is that I'll have people that are outside, quote unquote, all the time. And I'm in Southern California, so, year round. And I think the highest non-supplemented vitamin D level I've ever seen is, yeah, those mid 30s, maybe 37, 38. But there is really an epidemic of what's going on. And I'll speak to my vitamin D, personally. And I think that when we're growing up, we end up, drinking a lot more milk and dairy, and everything's vitamin D fortified. And that's really important as, growing bones. I remember the Milk Does a Body Good ads from the 1980s and things. So really important. But then, people start to become lactose intolerant, or your dietary things change, and we're not getting as much dairy in us. And certainly the sources that we have, cheese and otherwise, may not be vitamin D fortified. Like, I don't know if like, American cheese or brie cheese or any of these are the same level of vitamin D fortification as regular milk was. So not only and when I was a kid, like you, I was just outside all the time. Like, I'm not a video game guy. Even to this day, I'm outside chasing a ball or running after something or whatever. But our outside activity goes down, our intake of vitamin D goes down. And so as adults, we really are not getting kind of everything we need. And then when we are out in the sun, we're putting on sunscreen and we're staying out of the sun because we're so afraid of melanoma that we don't realize the vitamin D kind of issues. So my personal vitamin D level has been as low as 11. And I, a few years ago, I got what's called a DEXA scan, which most people know is a screen for bone health. I actually got it to look at my visceral fat and metabolic markers and muscle mass and things like that. And to my surprise, my doctor asked me, do you get a lot of like backaches and things? And I said, yeah, I do. And I just, I'm in my 40s now, and that's what just happens. And she actually diagnosed me with osteopenia, which is the early stage of osteoporosis. So it means I've got poor bone density. And again, this is someone who, I am pretty active guy. I was doing powerlifting. So, one of the things we talk about for bone health is working under high loads of resistance. And I was like doing multiples of body weight. So it is amazing and ridiculous how much what an epidemic this low vitamin D is, and why we need to talk about therapies, because to your point, oral therapy alone isn't enough. Right. So why don't we pop into the device a little bit and tell us a little bit about the research and the testing and what it looks like. Is it a commercial device? Do you have to go to your doctor's office? Like, let's explore that a little bit. So so you met the doctors at Louisiana State, right? LSU, and saw the 60% improvement in mortality, which is meaning people lived longer.
Right.
And now we want to push that into a consumer kind of prevention mode. So what is the form factor? Is it like a lamp? Like, what are we talking about here? And why don't we drop the website in so people can look it up as we're talking?
Sure. Good point. Energy, ENYRGY. So there's just one letter change there from the typical way we spell energy, ENYRGY.com. And
Perfect.
so they can go there and look at the FAQs and see the device and all the rest of it. But in a nutshell, it's looks simple. It's a box that the front of it is about 9 by 10 roughly, that you, like I say, you belly
So
up
like a
against.
sheet of paper, basically.
Well, it's about a foot deep,
Okay.
but where the light is housed in the fan and the electronic components and whatnot. But the biggest thing is that make it simple. It mounts on the wall so it can slide up and down for the height of the person that's being taken the treatment. And so, like I say, treat their bare skin on their torso, turn around and do their back, and where this evolved was to say, as I said earlier, we wanted to be very precise. And so we spent a lot of the time in the development of this saying, we want to take out we want to again, not complimentary, but we often talk about make it idiot proof, right? We want to make this so that anybody can use it and get their optimum, their maximum, actually, in this case, dosage of UVB, as well as these other benefits that we get, the nitric oxide, serotonin, endorphin, and BDNF. And so that's what we ended up with. And we're on our third gen of the device now. We're 3 years in total. We've had it commercialized now for just a few months, actually. And so we're fairly new on the market, few months in the market, but we've already done over 12,000 treatments on people. And so we have not had one person yet report back and say they didn't increase their vitamin D. Not one. And
What are
so
the normal boosts in vitamin D levels that you're seeing? Like 10 points, 20 points?
good example, coming from where we were talking about how some people, and you are part of that crowd that isn't able to get their vitamin D up. And we met a fellow, and his had the exact same story as you. He said, I've taken as much as 20,000 IUs, and I can't make it move. I hike. I like to be outside. Uh, I'm just stuck. And he said, I gave up. And
I,
so his
yeah, that does sound a lot like me for sure.
Yeah, and his testimonials on our website, and I'd scroll down and find he wears a red shirt. You'll find his video there, 2 minutes long, so it's fun to watch. But he was at a baseline of 37. We did his vitamin D. He was at 37, and in 50 treatments, this doesn't happen overnight, so it's a few weeks. So 10 weeks later, doing 5 treatments a week, he was at 78.
Wow.
So he was
Without supplementation.
no oral. No oral.
Wow. So
The oral didn't work for him anyway.
yeah, I mean, we can talk about vitamin D receptors and things. So really that was the effect of the light was doubling. And as we talked about before, the endogenous, your own body's vitamin D activation lasts so much longer than the oral supplementation. So that's a huge bump. That's a surprising bump to me.
That's actually the norm for us. And so we've
Wow.
got case studies. I think they're on our website. We've got quite a few case studies that show, went from here, went to here, went from here, went to, it's almost, because we got to remember, if you look at the retrospective studies on where vitamin D was on our ancestors, and you go way back to when people were always in the sun,
Yeah.
most of the day, natural levels were around 100. That's give or take where they were. And so there's a big clue there. The other thing that we took is, because we recommend 60 to 100. And like you said, a lot of the functional medicine people are saying 50 to 70. We're saying 60 to 100 because there's still a lot of benefits that are coming in above that 60 level even. And for just one little example, it's not that little really, but women that have vitamin D levels above 60 for an extended period of time have an 80% less incidence of breast cancer. That's pretty important. And men, it's prostate, and it's similar studies. So those are just some of the examples of what can happen. So it really comes down to find out where you are. You're probably low because,
Yeah.
19 out of 20 people really are below where they should be.
Yeah.
And so you're probably low, but find out how low and find out how important this is to get this up. Is get with it and then make the commitment. You need to be there for the rest of your life so that you can live longer. But what's more important than living longer?
Well, I mean, that's what we're all in the quest of, right? Living longer, but also living better.
That's
And getting back to, the longevity aspect of this, we are seeing now this new, and I think I've mentioned a few times on this podcast, one of the most terrifying new medical terms I've heard is turbo cancer. I don't know if you've come across this, but we are seeing younger and younger patients present with more and more aggressive cancers, breast cancer, colon cancer. In fact, one of my good friends from college, and she was Miss Healthy, organic eating, all that stuff. Went to get her screening colonoscopy at 45, and turns out she had colon cancer. And I mean, she was doing all the things that we think. And so now we're seeing younger and younger patients getting all sorts of different cancers. I think there's a couple of theories on this. Number one, metabolic disease being so prevalent, 93% of Americans, and that's causing our cells to age faster. So we're getting a loss of tolerance. But certainly I think vitamin D is part of that equation as well, knowing the protective role that it plays in the immune system and cancer tracking and monitoring. And then getting back to the longevity issue, we're focusing on health span a lot. So we talk about neurocognitive issues, Alzheimer's and Parkinson's, to your point from before. Could it be something as simple as just standing in front of a light while you're like, I was kind of thinking of places to put this, and I was thinking, boy, why not mount it under my sink when I'm washing dishes, and I'm standing there for time anyway, or, in a phone booth or whatever, when I'm on the phone talking to somebody, and you can get that therapeutic dose in just 2 to 4 minutes. That's not a lot, right? 2 to 4 minutes a day to add 10 years to your life, or 15 years. I mean, this is speculative, right? But not just 10 or 15 years to life, but 10 or 15 years to your health span, so that you have all your marbles and you're thinking correctly and you don't have cancer. Or we didn't even talk about cardiometabolic disease and vitamin D deficiency, but insulin resistance, all of these things. I mean, what a remarkably elegant solution to a myriad of problems, right? You said 70% of lifestyle related diseases can be mitigated by improving your vitamin D levels.
The analogy for me is, we all drive cars and vehicles, and they all have a check engine light, right?
Yeah.
That check engine light comes on. What do? You pull over, because it might be something that's going to stop you dead and cost
Or
you
if you're like me, I just keep driving until my car actually stops. But to your point, what we should be doing is really figuring out what's going wrong.
Correct. And so, here's what I see, in the analogy is, if we all had a little check engine light in the middle of our forehead that was monitoring our vitamin D level in those 37 trillion cells, almost everyone's check engine light would be flashing at all times.
Right.
And we'd go, oh, we better go take care of that real quick. Well, here's the challenge. And here, it's good and it's bad. The good part is we can miss a day. We can have things that are not ideal for a day, a week, a month, a year, in some cases, 5, 10 years. It's if you let it go for a lifetime that you end up with, cancer, or someone that's 45. Yeah. I mean, that's really concerning.
I'm low-key freaking out right now. I'm going to take like 100,000 units of vitamin D and get a light as soon as I can, because I mean, I've been vitamin D deficient, I think, most of my adult life, and I think most people are. And the problem is that you don't feel bad, right? Like if you break your arm, or, I call them SRIs after 40, sleep-related injuries, right? So all of a sudden you wake up and your shoulder hurts. Well, you're going to go see a physical therapist because you need to get that shoulder mobility back. But to your point is the kind of long-term depletion of vitamin D and the imbalances that it creates within your body, are imperceptible day by day. But then when you look at it over a 10 or 20 year period, these things add up.
Question. You talk about the longevity side of it, and people might have seen on the news or in the news lately, because it just hit. And they were going back and looking at studies that are actually from many years ago, and they found that the vitamin D levels were actually related to the length of our telomeres again as well. So now we've found that you can have life extension just by having your D up, and those telomeres, which are, the way I understand it, like a little end cap on your DNA, and they shrink as you age. And and so if it keeps them from shrinking or maybe lengthens them, they're not really sure of that. The research isn't clear on that yet. But what is clear is if your vitamin D level is up, you for sure you live longer because your telomeres are not shrinking as fast. And so just one more piece, this, and vitamin D isn't alone. We need to stay active. We need to stay social. We need to do all these other good things that, quite frankly, a lot of them are easier than we make them seem. But it's such an important plank in the base of what we're doing. And I think that's it. So the thing that I would urge anybody that's listening or watching this right now is to say, get your D tested so you've got your baseline, and then take care of it. And, there's 4 ways you can get your vitamin D up. One is the food you eat, which we've said the most you could get would be 10 to 15% of where you should be. You use the example of milk because it's important, but you would need 50 glasses of milk a day to get your D where you want it to be. So
And
no one can do that.
and 10% means going from 17 to adding 1.7% of that to go to 18.7, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Which statistically may look like a lot, 10%, but we're not talking a lot of a big lift in absolute numbers. All
correct.
right, so getting it through your food,
Yeah. Second way is oral ingestion, which we've talked about.
supplement. Yeah.
Third way is the sun, which we've talked about. It's the angle. It's the fact we've moved indoors. It's tricky because in a lot of people live in places that they can't get it at all for several months of the year. So that goes out the window. They're basically
Yeah. I grew up in Chicago, and yes, you don't want to be outside from like basically November until about April. So,
right.
yeah.
Yeah, no, exactly. So that's why our device, our solution is the fourth. And we, like I say, we have had 100% success in helping people get their vitamin D increased into range where it should be.
And I think, from what we talked about, getting it appropriate, right? Like into that range that really kind of helps optimally improve people. And when we talk about supplementation, I think it's just a good time to take a little break, because a lot of people get supplemented with vitamin D2, which really can shift a number, but biologically speaking, you're shaking your head, so you agree with me, kind of doesn't really do too much. So do you want to kind of talk about D2 versus D3 for supplementation?
Um, the vegans of the world try to get their vitamin D in range with vitamin D2, and because it's plant based, and so that's a lot of people relate to that. But frankly, the research is really clear. It's not very effective. It's
Yeah, and
better than nothing, put it that way, for sure. But it's compared to D3, it's not what you want to be doing. And like I say, oral falls so far short to start with that you're kind of trying to do something. You're using the wrong tool.
right,
it's
it's like using a hammer to drive a screw. Like it doesn't, you just need to use the right tool, right? Yeah, and I think that that's something as well that in the conventional world gets confused. In fact, my primary care doc, and I just started seeing a doctor not that long ago, because I'm at that age where I'm like, I probably got more yesterdays than tomorrow, but my vitamin D was low, and he prescribed vitamin D2, and I didn't know. He said, I'm going to get you some vitamin D. And I'm like, great, I can just supplement it, but if insurance pays, whatever. And lo and behold, I get to the pharmacy, and it's D2. And I kind of, part of my heart just kind of cried. I'm like, oh, that's, wah, wah, wah. That's too bad, because it's not going to do anything. So, it really becomes important to get the supplementation correct. So not just move the number, but move the actual level that you need, and get the right boost, as opposed to just any boost, right? I think that makes sense.
exactly.
So have you guys then, with the light device, looked at different areas on the body, and how much is it an issue of surface area? Is it, or is it truly kind of, or was it just easy, like the abdomen and the trunk was just an easily accessible area? Or do you know, does it make a difference, like if you put it on your face versus like your chest versus your thighs or legs, or it's just an issue of
Yeah,
getting the adequate amount of light?
quite frankly, it's just skin area. But the
Okay.
challenge that you have with legs, arms, face, a face, you kind of don't want to really do it there, just because
Well,
you
eyes and cataracts
don't want
and
your
sun
eyes to
damage and things. Yeah.
UV of any kind. And that's one of the advantages of what we have here. It's completely contained. So when you're bellied up to it, you can't, your eyes can't see it, in fact.
Yeah. There's no light leakage around.
So what it is there's a nice bit of skin area there that's, for the most part, fairly flat on most people. If somebody has a bit of a belly, they're gonna be a
It
little
will it
further
will
into the.
insulate around. It will indent and insulate around.
Well, they'll be further in, and so why I bring that up is, but we already knew that, and so we have, part of the engineering, we've got sensing devices in there, sensors that know that you're closer, meaning we need to cut the power a little bit to give you the same dosage.
Mm.
So we do that, and that's part of the sophistication, the precision of what we have here. If you move away completely, it shuts off. We don't want you looking at it.
Oh,
So
wow. So it's like
so
a pressure sensitive.
no, it's distance. It sees.
Oh, okay.
It's just a sensor that knows where you are, and
So, like, for instance, if you have a child, they're not going to get blasted in the face walking by the device because your
Totally.
abdomen level happens to be their face level. So it's a built-in safety. And then so this is a wall mounted, and we'll put a picture. I'll somehow figure out kind of how to put a picture in here. But so it's a wall mount device. Is it something that people can install themselves, or do you need to have this professionally
Well, if
installed,
they're a
or
little bit handy, it's put 6 screws in
in a stud?
it's not very hard. And if they don't have the stud, they can use, we even supply them, send some drywall mounts that quite frankly are even easier to use. And so it's easy to install and requires just a regular 110 outlet plug-in. And
Well, that
that's
becomes
it.
important too.
So simple. And we just say, put it somewhere where you're going to see it and use it all the time is probably the biggest thing.
Well, probably like most therapies, it works a lot better if you use it, right?
Exactly.
So putting it in the basement dungeon and never being down there is not going to do the trick. And so you said 2 to 4 minutes. How many
Yes.
times a week? You said that one gentleman had done it 5 times a week. Is that recommended? Is it
I
like,
do.
is it better
Yeah,
to
I
do it
do it
like
every day.
if like my level is 17, should I start like 3 times a day and then kind of go down, or how do we dose this out? Or you said the app really just kind of tells you what to do.
The app will let you do it once a day only.
Okay.
And that's going to give you the most we think you can get based on all your questions you've answered and your skin type. And so we'll give you that optimum dosage once a day. We think you should do it every day if you're that low. Like literally do it 7 days a week would be smart because you'll bring it up that much quicker. And so that makes sense. Kind of on a minimum baseline. If you're not going to do it 2 to 3 times a week, I'd say don't bother, because you're not going to move things very much in those kind of ranges. So 3, 4, 5, 6 times a week makes all kinds of sense. And that's why having one at home is important. We also have them going into various facilities. And one of the most popular places, of course, is, like a gym, because people are going there regularly anyway. So
Hopefully.
a lot of them are putting in these recovery rooms and all that side of it. So they can go there, they can go to a naturopath or a chiropractor. Some of them are putting them in and those kind of places. And they just build them into their programs and charge accordingly. In terms of the money side of it, if it's a commercial device, and the commercial and home device are the same hardware. So you get the same dosage, the same everything at home. It's just that the home unit, the software limits it to 6 users, which most houses don't have more than 6 people that would be using it. So 6 users, where the commercial device is unlimited, and they have a whole dashboard and the console to operate the control of everything. So it's $14,000, and then the home one, which is the same device as I said, but different software just for that use, is $34.41. So it's
Okay.
not that, and we have
Well,
payment plans. They can get it for, I think it's like 160, $170 a month if they want that type of thing.
Well, and if you think about the health consequences of a low vitamin D, right? That's, you're lucky if you're only spending $3,000 a year, right, on
Right.
medications and
Yeah,
visits and things. And certainly, for someone like me, and we can talk, or maybe we'll have a subsequent talk about, or I'll do a little mini focused podcast about the importance of vitamin D, but we talk about hormone regulation, both for men and women, fertility. Low vitamin D has been associated with fertility issues, certainly metabolic syndrome. You mentioned the cancer, brain health. I mean, it seems like a solid long-term investment for anybody who is really worried about optimizing health, and such a simple thing. And you mentioned the UVA, UVB thing. So as we're talking about kind of skin damage from this, right? Very unlikely, because we're predominantly using UVB light. Is that correct?
absolutely. Yeah, no, really important. Uh, like I say, if you think you want to be healthy as you can be, you will not get there with low vitamin D. Can't happen. Like I say, 37 trillion cells. If they're all low, they're not optimal. And what we don't understand, when I was at 34, I felt good because I'm naturally a pretty high energy. You can probably tell a little bit type A,
As we all are. That's why we're here. That's how we get to this point in
competitive
life.
athlete, all the rest of it. And so I thought I was doing really well.
Yeah.
Since I've been in this space now, and I treat myself regularly, my vitamin D level is between 80 and 100 at all times. No oral, no worrying about anything else. I don't worry about whether I'm out in the sun or anything else. Doesn't matter. Just go about my life. And I'm between 80 and 100 because I'm in front of the device regularly. And so, but the benefits of that are now I sleep better. Like I don't know where you are. Like I was a 5.5 to 6 hour guy.
Yeah,
And
I mean, I'm lucky if I get 5.5 hours. That's a great night for me. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And now, last night I had 7.5 hours until I got on this and got this D where it needed to be. I, I don't think I'd slept 7.5 hours in a night since I was a teenager. Like just
I
had.
get, I feel you. I feel that. Well, boy, so many benefits. And as I said, I'll probably do a separate podcast on vitamin D alone. We'll do like a mini convo or something about vitamin D, but so many different aspects. And I think what I love about this again is that we're we're engaging the body's own resources to activate. We're just making it more efficient. We didn't talk about other benefits of light therapy, but from a mitochondrial health standpoint, you mentioned BDNF and all these others. I mean, there is now extensive research being done into light therapies and red light, blue light, antimicrobial, all these things. So I think light therapy is really a new frontier where we've known about it for a while, but I think the research is finally backfilling in some of the use cases, and we're really seeing a lot of importance. But I mean, I think just the fact that you're bringing people's vitamin D into that range, in and of itself, I think is just it's fantastic and phenomenal. So,
Our
absolutely awesome.
our testimonials are super fun to read.
I'm sure as they come in, everybody's in the old days, you'd be waiting for the fax machine, reading it line by line. Now I guess it's all email, but yeah, I think super cool. So we will definitely put a link to the device, and maybe we'll get like a coupon code or something going for people.
Yeah,
But
let's do that orally right now. I'm. Are you good with a coupon code of SB? Kind of
sure,
SB 100 caps. SB 100 will give people $100 off just by using
perfect.
that code. So getting to know you is worth money.
That's great. No, I think that's lovely. I can't wait. So I'm gonna order one for sure. And because I wake up with back pain, like for people that don't know, like, and when I was really aggressive, there's a time where I was taking 100,000 units of vitamin D a day. Not saying anybody else should do that, but me being a biohacker, that's what I was doing. And my like joint aches and pains got better. And I just forgot about that actually until this conversation. So I'm looking forward to a back pain free life. But we'll put the coupon code. We'll get everything linked up, and I think that it's so exciting to see again. Let's use the body the way it's supposed to be. I always say the best pharmacy that you ever have is in all of your cells. So I think this is just a great example of that. All right, David. At the end of the podcast, I always ask people kind of these goofball questions, so that we can kind of get to know you and kind of hear. So, what is one thing that has happened in your life people would be surprised to hear? Like, for instance, for me, I got arrested when I was in college. I can now tell my parents about that, but people wouldn't think that I was ever kind of handcuffed in the back of a squad car. So what's something like that? And it was a stupid college prank. I didn't do anything horrible. We had people in the trunk of my car, and we happened to get followed by a police car where the guy was like, "What is happening here? Stupid college prank." So don't do that. I've already warned my kids ahead of time before they go to school. So what's something surprising that maybe not necessarily incriminating, that people need to know about you?
Wow, that's kind of fun, man. This is probably a real long list. What would it be? I guess I am a hockey player and played it all my life and coached elite hockey for 23 years, and uh, probably something like because people that know me also know I'm a lover, not a fighter, but
Until the skates come on, and then it's gloves off. Let's go.
more or less, So people might think you're a hockey player, you probably fight all the time. I never got in a fight, but I did. So, I was on a breakaway and the guy was getting me with his stick in a way that you shouldn't be doing and all the
Kind of
rest
hooked
of
you
it.
or something.
and he tied me up and all the rest of it when he in ways that are totally, he should have gotten I should have got a free shot out of it. But anyway, I just turned around, dropped the gloves, and got
Decked
into a
him.
fight right then and there.
Like,
So
oh my God, who is that? Is that
glad you made
Letourneau
on
out
the
there?
spot
Like,
that. This isn't necessarily what I would normally do, but boy, I was really twisted out of shape at that point.
well, I played a lot of sports growing up, and yeah, you definitely that athlete mindset comes in, so I totally get it. And then, what's your favorite food? What's like you could eat it all day, all night. Doesn't have to be healthy. We had one person say Chicago style deep dish pizza. Being a Chicago guy, that made me happy. But what's your favorite thing to eat?
For me, it's two things. I'm very much a carnivore, so it would be steak, and that would be probably a bone-in prime rib
Mm,
steak, or baby back ribs done
yeah,
done the right way, like they do in
that
this.
falling off the bone kind of. Yeah, I
Yeah,
get it.
exactly. Either
Love
one
it.
of those for sure.
Love it.
And,
Well,
and,
David,
and there is a little bit of vitamin D in red meat, so it's okay to.
yeah, you have to also eat probably 8 slabs of ribs to get the equivalent of 3 seconds on the light, probably, right?
I
So
think so. I think so.
something like that. Well, David, thank you
Exactly.
so much for being here. I think it's great. I love what you're doing again because we're using the body to heal itself, and I think that's what conventional medicine has just abandoned as we become so dependent on drugs and medications, and even in the functional medicine world, nutraceuticals and supplements, we forget that the body has this amazing capacity to heal. So thank you for reminding us, and the stick to itiveness to get this product to market. We'll link everything in the notes, and the SB100, thank you for the code. We'll put that out there for everybody to use. And it's just been a wonderful time getting to know you. So thanks you for being here on the Curious Cardiologist podcast.
Thank you. This has been fun, and I hope that we've been able to pass on some information that people can use. Hopefully, they're using it, and it's been my honor to be here. Wonderful podcast, and appreciate everything that you're doing.
Awesome. Well, thank you, David. And thank you guys for listening and being with us as part of the Curious Cardiologist podcast, where we're always trying to figure out how can we heal ourselves and what are some of the, as I've said before, the 50-cent solutions to $1 million problems, and really looking at old problems in new ways. So thank you guys for being here. If you like what you heard, please subscribe to the podcast and like us. Tell all your friends about us. If something resonated with you during our discussion, or we didn't get something completely right, or you have an opinion, leave a comment. I love listening to the comments and reading the comments, and I'll get back to you, and want to make sure that you guys are engaged. So thank you for being here, and I'll catch you next time on the Curious Cardiologist podcast. Bye, everyone.